Dzień dobry, witamy Państwa bardzo serdecznie po przerwie.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, after the break. Now I'd like to invite you to an address by Marlena Jankowska-Augustyn. Just imagine that the creative sectors, as you well know, were faced with various problems. For example, maintaining production, liquidity, employment, and also adjustment to e-commerce. The Center of Design Fashion at the University of Silesia initiated studies to check how the clothing sector works in the pandemic and how the sociological and legal environment works. There have been 4 publications that result from that, and Professor Marlena Jankowska-Augustyn of the University of Silesia will discuss those. The developments were created together with Professor Mirosław Pawełczyk. Professor, the floor is yours. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Good morning. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see my presentation yet. I understand that in a moment you will see it on the screen, and so will I. Thank you. Now I can see it. Welcome once again, online remotely from Katowice. It's certainly an aftermath of this pandemic situation that we are meeting in this highly COVID manner. Sorry, Professor Pawełczyk wanted very much to be with us. Nonetheless, well, the number of the different subjects he's working on made it impossible for him, so let me now speak in my name, but also on behalf of Professor Mirosław Pawełczyk, who co-manages this Center of Law, Design, Fashion and Advertisement as the President of the Council of Coordinators. May I have the following slide, please? Well, short information about us. We've operated for just 2 years, formerly only 1 year, and this is the first such an interdisciplinary unit in Europe. We checked that, and it turned out that a center that really works on law, because my genesis is law. Well, in my previous life, before my higher doctorate, I was a lawyer, and I know more about business connected to the interdisciplinary approach to IPR, and I'm going to illustrate that as well. May I have the following slide, please? Another slide, please. Well, just as an advanced organizer, may I show you 4 publications we've had. They have been published from October, November 2020, now till April 2021. The first initiative concerned development of a study, an interdisciplinary study that would make it possible to show the context of the changes that take place and that are of significance for design, fashion, and what is broadly construed as law. Let's look at different laws, also the law of fashion. You often say that intellectual property right is the darling of the law of fashion. It's the core here. However, around fashion, there are many other legal subjects that we are perfectly well aware of. Now, that first study exceeded any expectations I might have had. As you see, 3 volumes, not one, with 42 content partners, 7 strategic partners, altogether nearly 50 chapters, divided into 10 sections. The book was really over 1,000 pages long, but we divided it into 3 volumes for that reason. That was the idea, the concept, and I'd like to thank the Polish Patent Office for the honorary patronage, which also extended to the following initiative. May I have the next slide, please? Here you see a range of various enterprises, mostly legal houses, but also fashion designers, who have had their participation. We have SGH University. The absent professor represents that university. We combine legal, business aspects, management in all its various aspects. May I have the next slide, please? Well, another list of partners of the media context, and it's a very important aspect of this publication. Can I have the next slide? And then our last publication, which was published late in April, and it premiered at Fashion Masterclass in Dolph. Well, it's not a translation one-to-one, but to a great degree, it's transposed from the purely Polish context to the international context.
It has been published in English. All of these publications are available on our website, including on Google Books, available under open licenses. So this is just a teaser. I would like to move forward. At the same time, I want to tell you about certain reflections we've had due to the changes occurring in our social life and our emotion lives too, to some extent. Let us begin with a fever that is mostly associated with COVID. But 10 years ago, things were different. Saturday night fever, that was the first association people had. So Professor Bogdan Mróz, a lecturer at the Warsaw School of Economics, did the study, and basically back then fever was associated with consumption, with spending money. So the carnival of spending, of luxury, that was what people thought of back then when you mentioned fever. So this is the relationship between an entrepreneur and a potential consumer. And that's what I'd like to discuss today. I will not be discussing law today, despite my background. So I will try to discuss IPR, but it's going to be more implicite. I would like to present a broader context, because knowledge, even in the world of IP, is useless as long as you don't know how to use it. So I have been listening to this presentation by Professor Strojny, and he mentioned the valuation of industries and IPR in general. He mentioned intangibles. And something that I studied as a lawyer, mind you, it's very difficult for me. So I was trying to understand the value of an enterprise from the point of view of how said enterprise have been investing in various intangibles. This is going to be more pronounced in the age of COVID. I will tell you, I will show you why in a moment. So, goodwill. So, it is renown, know-how, and a system of efficient enterprise management. At least it is so for a lawyer. But you can include here relationships. The relationship between a consumer and an entrepreneur, but also this relationship with investors. Because today you need investors so as not to invest your own savings. It is about conveying a certain idea. And this idea begins to bear fruit when it comes to IP. What about a consumer's loyalty? Basically, it is included in goodwill these days. Why am I saying that? When you are evaluating IP, you will see goodwill as a part of it. For me, as a lawyer, I see a number of concepts that do not go very well hand in hand, because I'm moving to the area of personal goods. So I would like to simply show you in broad strokes this new post-COVID reality and how you will be better able to manage an enterprise. So the business environment, micro, macro, all of that is incredibly important. May I have the next slide, please? And another teaser, I'm quoting the latest studies that have been published by KPMG. Just one example. Today's statistics are talking about 2020, 2025, so what we could expect within the next 5 years. There'll be an increase in growth. So let's look at jewelry, 0.4 million to 0.5 in 2025, quite late. What about beauty, the beauty sector, cosmetics? So 0.8 till there'll be a jump to 1 million. Now, clothes, accessories, there will be a change there too, to the level of 3.3. So you can see there is a pattern there. You can observe it quite easily. On the next slide, just one important thing, the market of luxury goods, including fashion, but cars can be included here. Cars are a sort of fashion. So this sector is estimated to be 2.5 billion zlotys. Yes, there are some decreases there. And yet 60% of luxury goods is about female fashion.
Właśnie w takiej rozpisce
And another slide covering the period till 2025, forecasting the potential sales of various products. So in 2020 there was a drop, and we will be returning only to the level of 2019, and it will take us 2 years to get there. As late as 2023, can we expect to reach the same scale of supply and demand that we saw directly ahead of the pandemic? And this is what you see here. So you will have to take a few steps back before we can move forward. And this is the crux of the matter when it comes to the fashion industry, and why it's so important to discuss separately the VCM sector. So basically what we witnessed is a COVID revolution, that's what I call it. But it's not something that will have happened and we are going to shrug it up and move forward. It's a bit like a French Revolution. The impact will be here to stay, especially in the context of 30, 50 years. Everything will be different. Now, businesses need to prepare for different consumers. The rules of engagement have changed. It is very important to follow new trends and to invest a lot of capital in technological growth and in mechanisms that are going to protect our intangible goods. And here, some statistical data. Here in Poland, we are enjoying just a fraction of spending on luxury goods, I mean fashion and jewelry. We're talking about what, 500 million euros annually rather. Let's take a look at other countries, France, Italy, Germany. We're talking about billions, and we cannot really compare ourselves to those other markets. And we do know that here at our center, so we try to act internationally. We try not to follow only the Polish trends. And what do we have in this slide? So I wrote an article on what is happening in e-commerce. So just a few moments, if you have some time to spare, do take a gander. And the next slide will help me to share something with you, a reflection. It's quite important for me. You have Dior here, surrounded by beautiful women, his models, and Cartier, a family, is on the other photo. So, crisis in China and elsewhere is perceived as an opportunity, which is very significant. Let's look at the fashion industry here, about how haute couture has grown since the 19th century. Since mid-19th century. These are mad investments, mad ideas, great ideas on how to run a business. Today's minor designers in Poland and large fashion companies simply have forgotten. Let me reference those people's biographies. I'm truly fascinated by their biographies. I love reading them. We should do our homework. We should read 10 biographies, especially that of McDonald's. If we had read them, we would know that those things have already been done, even though somebody lived 100 or 150 years ago. They were no less smart than people who live in the 21st century. And Dior invented himself after World War II. Women at the time were tired of wearing black clothes that was supposed to show sympathy with people who suffered because of war. Women were tired that they couldn't wear those beautiful big hats that they could wear before the war, and he capitalized on this idea. He observed the trends in the society, and he proposed a new look. It was a return to those floral arrangements, to flowers, to romanticism. He presented a woman who is a girl who dreams. And this is when he broke through. Women fell in love with him. Let's look at Cartier. Cartier's great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather maybe, he had experienced a number of problems before his name became a household name. So, under the French-Prussian War, people thought that there was stability, and he had invested in real estate. He had great clients. And this is when the stability was over, a war broke out, and nobody wanted to buy those products that were exhibited at jewelers' stores. And he started selling the assets of very rich people, from Paris. Basically, he became a middleman. So, an enlightened mind who loves what they do will always find something to do, will always find their path. And here, New Look 2.0, a few years back, nobody would come up with a bikini that would be trikini. Nobody would assume that Anna Pintor would put on a tracksuit and present herself in it. You can see that you can have a new business running policy. So this designer is coming up with clothes for healthcare workers. They will have some arrangements, applications. So you can see that even such set of working clothes need not be boring, and it can present somebody's immunity. Marie Boulage showed what is terrible about social distancing. People couldn't try on clothes, and she had to keep her business running, so she came up with something new. Various hats and caps and things that do not need trying on so that the size would be somewhat universal. What is even more important, she started sewing bags so that everything could be in one size. Next slide. There is this joke online that Erwan Grimberg, an analyst, repeated. Hundreds of thousands of euros had gone for C-suite executives, and they were lost because the coronavirus basically brought those fashion companies to the right level. And now let's talk about scenarios that you can see on the horizon. Professor Bogdan Mróz suggested that there are 4 potential scenarios that could develop. So, which solutions do we have? Going fully ascetic. This is what happened a year ago, and this trend might continue. The second possibility is a new normal. It used to describe the Cold War. So today, every self-respecting executive knows that they need to think fast on their feet and jump from a problem to a solution. So uncertainty to understanding. Volatility to vision. And that is something that we have been experiencing now. Thirdly, we have digitization, which is progressing very fast. Well, means that's certain. And possession. Possession before usage. We will see how this trend develops, because we will see what happens to this trend in this post-COVID age. And now, let's face facts. People think that fashion is, it's something that it's blurred, it's something to do with femininity, and that's it. However, men also like things including watches or cars. So it is not only about aesthetics or emotions, but it's also about business. Without a good watch on one's wrist, nobody will take you serious. Nobody's going to sign a contract with you.
Fashion to jest rocket science.
So fashion equals rocket science. There are too many designers, sorry to say that, and too many people that are involved in the fashion sector who claim that they do things for the love to fashion. Well, all good and very well, but first you need to be talented and you need to be able to use the opportunity. So talent for fashion needs to go hand in hand with your talent for business. So look at this macro and microeconomic environment of a company. I don't have much time, I understand, because my slides are blinking. So qualitative, quantitative studies, a company's SWOT and PESTLE are important. Detailed studies are run on colors, how consumers perceive reality through colors and how that impacts their choices. What happens online? So imagine you have this consumer that goes into an online store. We know where they're coming from. Furthermore, today, business is no longer only stationary. In Germany, before COVID, 80% of stores were brick-and-mortar stores. Today, the balance has been reversed, but for that to happen, you need proper software. You need to be ready for your clients, because the client will have to be constantly attacked, if you forgive that expression. And here you see this complexity of thinking. I'm talking about the micro and macroeconomic factors. Next slide. Business awareness. Data-driven fashion. Without data, you won't achieve much. Let's agree on that. Imagine you have a designer they need to bring in revenue. What about Gucci, Prada, or our other fashion entities? You have various fashion trends, but they are not just, a source of inspiration only. It is also something that is linked to what consumers would like to potentially buy. And another thing is sustainable fashion tech, that is various techno accessories. And today, we do accept that our data is dispersed all over the place, including DNA, biometric data. Shoppertainment is another concept these days. Internet is like a big enjoyment yard. And you can buy stuff, but you can also enjoy yourself while doing that, which is important, because we are moving from offline to online and in the other direction too. So a potential customer dwells in two worlds at the same time. A few years back, I would teach my clients that you have two models, B2B and B2C. Today, you have more. You have M2C. Manufacturer to consumer is one of them. Also, you have O2O, that is offline to online, or in the other direction, because you have producers that display the products in showrooms, but then you need to order products online. You cannot buy it in a brick-and-mortar store. People have different concepts. So there is this special trademark that is loosely understood. And certificates, sustainable fashion, showing that you care about the environment. But also procedures need to be secured. It is taken for granted these days, but it was not all that important before, even though it was raised as a subject before the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we have learned that there are certain procedures that are supposed to protect us, for example, at a clothes production store, and they impact the valuation of a company in the context of an IPO. And another thing, a company's renown. Made in China, not so much, but more made in Poland, made in Warsaw. Business patterns, guide us. You have designed in New York. If you have your seat, your HQ in New York, then your business, your success is guaranteed. So it is all about perceptions. And our next slide. And another teaser. Here I'll show you the situation pre-COVID-19. These are supply chains. It all stopped at a certain point and fell into financial ruin. A number of products, people involved, products, engagements, commitments, loans, banks involved. So things that a statistical lawyer will not even consider. Another slide. And a few more teasers. Bread ahead. A small bakery. Basically, they went online. They started running biscuit baking seminars, e-learning, online meetings, and the company grew suddenly because they launched these initiatives on Instagram, and a huge majority of Instagram users, they use all this knowledge to do things, buy things. A good example of how you can use social media under lockdown and in the age of social distancing. So, your product lines going to be refreshed. Let's use jewelry as an example.
Nawet na głupoty.
A contemporary consumer who wants to spend a lot of money, even on silly gimmicks, they've got plenty of choices to choose between the fine jewelry and fashion jewelry, something very cheap bought at H&M, and then high jewelry, poorer materials, but with one very precious stone. There are such playthings from Christian Dior, and now after COVID you can ask how to magnetize the potential end consumers. Another idea for business strategies in fashion, the absolute localization of an element production. This can be stripped flint or banded flint, amber, that comes from my partner from Sweden, who, among others, uses such locality, but also environmentally friendly fashion. He says how he obtains the raw material. Sometimes it comes from upcycling. It's reprocessed often. So this is the information that gets to the consumer. One more slide, please. It shows this tendency that you invite more young artists, for example, through Instagram and Facebook contacts, and even from LinkedIn. So this is a contact. Something that I have mentioned, this type of fashion is the foundation for future. When we're talking about green banks, green loans, green loans, the whole world is turning green before the pandemic. We've seen those pictures from Venice, for example, and that's a very important subject that we will also see in the registration of different forms of IPR. There's also going to be healthy fashion. There are already now methods for producing furniture where the material is connected with nanosilver, which kills the virus, COVID among others. So we have sterile products that we don't have to exchange so often. So this is this new rocket science course to follow. One more slide. Designing your own jewelry. We return to relationship with a client, perhaps female client. Did you know that every third woman is dissatisfied from the engagement ring, thanks to those 3D shots that go around? You can produce ideas that are verified first on the internet. So this hashtag is another hit of the season, which will follow COVID. May I have one more slide, please? Fashion, as you see, goes this way. I'd say it's Mad Max, must be Mad Max 4 now. So this is probably where it's going. One more slide. I want to show you this quick introduction. Next slide, please. Fashion tech. I'm not going to discuss it in detail. May I? The next slide, please. We have a breakdown into digital technology, difficult technology, and biological technology. And here a great work is done by H&M, who cooperate with the Technology Institute in Copenhagen, who are presenting those change awards, which show the course of the changes. May I ask for a change of the slide? This is it. And I believe there is no time for that. Now a curio. Every product we buy today, let it be a sweater, a gown, it may have its own passport, which will let us read how it was made, what of, how you need to use it, how to resell it, and we really move from quantity to quality. And then fast fashion here in this context is something that's going to be dead. On the following slide, I want to say that we have new research which shows that we cannot speak of generations X, Y, Z. We're talking about stabilizers, settlers, and about the new optimists. These are the people who are tired with the amount of work, and perhaps every one of us knows that. Now, this is the type of design that's going to correspond to our pains, and also website design should be adjusted to who the client is going to be, stabilizer, settler, or new optimist. The person who will claim new emotions and different cinema, psychology, science fiction, or romantic. And that's how fashion works today. I'm not giving you details because I believe I've gone over my allocated time already. One more slide. I'd like to use the example of design to show to you how Tokyo University works today. We have lecturers who come as avatars. Ideas, designs, financing, implementation, something that we in Poland can only dream of. And at the end of the day, we must stand up against the best. In the next slide, you see this effect of meetings. And we have also those colleagues who are like in Player One movie, and they treat one another seriously. We don't have to work seriously, but it all begins to look like a science fiction movie. Now, in the last slide, I'd like to quote Edward Winston, but Professor Bogdan Mróz recently discussed that in this context. Beautiful words. The problem of humanity is that our emotional system dates back to Paleolithic. We've got institutions born in the Middle Ages and divine technology. And it gives us plenty of options. So I'd like to finish saying these words. And today I'd like to emphasize that we have Renaissance. It's not enough to love fashion, but we need to do our homework. You'll find more information under this address, and there is also contact to me. I'm sorry if I have abused your time, and I hope that you managed to understand the context through all the technology involved. Once again, may I say that today intellectual property definitely calls for maybe not redefinition, but a new insight, very flexible and practical use, not only in theory. And a practitioner, lawyer, a static one won't build the future. They must dynamize the world, and here I come back to the C level, where you absolutely need CNOs, chief legal executive that's thinking for the future. Has someone done it? How about a license, or maybe not a license, but build a factory? Well, this is a long tail, and I've got to interrupt myself. Magdalena probably won't do it now, so I'm just breaking my own speech, and thank you very much.